It's time to pull those belts tight, race fans. The front stretch is coming at you, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. Now, here's Dan Taylor and Dirk Houston.
Hey, it's Jet the Gasman in Dover, driver of the number 53 Home Pride Motorsports Sprint Car, and you're listening to The Front Stretch.
Well, good morning to you, race fans, and welcome to The Front Stretch, presented by Joe's Karting, online at joeskarting.com. Fast-paced, white-knuckle racing just across the river, 23rd Avenue in Council Bluffs. All this GD and rain we've been getting lately. It's great to have an indoor karting facility. Last year during the Knoxville Nationals, the 360 Nationals, I went up to Knoxville and watched those races. And Chris Krug, who comes in and does a little bit of contributing for us and talks to me about late models and sprint cars, took me over to Slideways Karting Center. And we'd paid our money and we were having a good time. And then the rains came and we were kind of SOL. The rest of the track was, it was literally like my dad used to say, slick as snot on a glass doorknob. You couldn't turn that wheel at all and you're sideways up into the wall, which had its fun, but I would have much rather preferred to have a nice roof over my head where I could have kept going at full speeds.
Yep.
And that's the great thing about Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs.
And possibly go out there and enter for a chance to win that Kenny Wallace Racing Experience ride.
Hey, speaking of that, we have a pair of passes to give away. Rick Havenridge gave us some Drive What You Brung tickets to Kansas Speedway for this coming Friday, Saturday, and I think Sunday. I'll have to double-check the dates on that
the first
again.
weekend of June?
Yeah. And you get to go down, and if you've got a Corvette, you've got a hot rod, you've got any kind of a car, they're going to put 43 cars at a time out on the Kansas Speedway. They're going to put a pace car out in front, and they're going to let you take a couple of laps and have a good time in your car. So we're going to give those away. Maybe we'll kind of figure something out in turn 3 or 4 how to give those away. But then we've also got Iowa Speedway tickets for the June truck race and the June Xfinity and truck race, which is coming up in a couple of weeks. We got 10 pair of tickets to give away for each one of those races. Since it's kind of in a shortened window, we didn't have time to do a 5-week contest. So we're just going to give those away over the next couple of weeks. We've got some trivia we're going to do probably during turn number 3 while we're talking about some NASCAR news and notes, so make sure you're tuned in for that. We got a lot of stuff to give away today, and we got a lot of stuff to talk about. Unfortunately, we have to start out on a bad note with after we had recorded the show last weekend and it aired on Sunday morning, Saturday night, one of the local racers driving a vintage sprint car, Joe Haig, was killed during racing. I think it was during hot laps at Junction Motor Speedway. Had you ever met with Joe? I know you've been doing this for a while. So
No, I'd seen the name, but hadn't had the pleasure of meeting the guy, and it sounds like he was one heck of a man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, everybody I've heard said he was a great guy. Just really loved to race and to help the community out, and he had his own private race car museum in his house that you could go and see. And you know, if you were nice enough to him, he'd let you come in and kind of check it all out. And I know him and Don Dowd were friends. Don Dowd was interviewed on a Channel 7 piece later that week.
Yeah, it was a nice piece.
It was a very nice piece, very well done. And Luke Cochran's been sending me stuff all week long. I think he was a couple years older than Luke, and it's very scary. And I hope and pray that I can't believe, and I've been saying this, and maybe it's a little bit rude to say it, but I can't believe anybody would get into a car, vintage or not, without some sort of a halo. I mean, we've learned our lesson, I don't know how many times. There's a reason why when they came out with next generation cars, they created the halos, and then they kept perfecting them and making them better and better and better. And, tragedy like this, maybe somebody will say, okay, everything else can be vintage, but we got to put a halo on this thing in case just a freak accident happens. I mean, who'd have ever thought you'd have rolled in hot laps, But it did, and unfortunately, Joe lost his life. But so we send out our thoughts and prayers. It's been a rough week for his family and his friends. So we kind of lost one of our own there, and
everybody at McCool Junction also.
Absolutely, that's a tough situation to deal with. I know a lot of drivers were it's kind of affected you when you watch that kind of a thing, and then you got to go out there and race later that night. So. Tough deal. We send our thoughts and prayers, as I know a lot of the racing community has gotten together. All right, let's recap the All-Star race. It's been, I don't know how long since it aired, a little over a week. I'm still confused as to what the heck happened. I mean, the All-Star race started out as the shtick of the whole thing, the drive of the whole thing was $1 million. That was, when was the first one? Like 20 years ago? 25 years ago?
Roughly, I'm going to say roughly 87, 88, something like that.
Sounds about right. You think maybe it's time to up the ante? I mean, I know, listen, you're saying, Dan, it's $1 million. That's, what, 4 or 5 race-winning checks on a Cup circuit? Because those race-winning checks, a driver's purse, the winning purse is $250,000. Somewhere in there, right?
That would be absolute smallest. I mean, it pays over $200,000 to start the Daytona 500.
Yeah,
so,
I know. I'd read that, but like Daytona's a bigger paying purse.
Daytona's the top purse of the year, but yeah, it depends on the track, and but the drivers are all under contract.
Yeah,
or not all of them, because your lower tier drivers still race for percentages. Mm-hmm. But the guys that are winning the All-Star race, basically, your Hendrick drivers, your Gibbs drivers, they're all under contract. They're getting paid $20,000 or $20 million a year.
Yeah.
So roughly a little over $500,000 a race.
Yeah, and the All-Star race for them is bonus.
Right.
I mean, if they win that $1 million, I've understood that the pit crews, the over-the-wall guys, they all get bonuses. Everybody I mean, that's a cool $1 million that you don't have.
Right.
But kind of what I'm getting at is that I think NASCAR got a little too cute with the rules this year.
Well, exactly. That's what I was going to say. They went way too gimmicky. Mm-hmm. Way too gimmicky, in my opinion.
I really liked it last year. I thought the 4 segments was very reminiscent to heat races. If you won your segment, you were on the pole. If you won segment number 1, then you were on the pole. If you won segment number 2, you were outside. I think it was the 4 winners then got to come down pit road together. I mean, it's changed so much that we lose track of where it went, but I thought it was easier to understand last year, and there was some strategy that laid out that I thought these guys did a great job with working the strategy last year to where it wasn't confusing for the listener, but like Matt Kenseth getting stuck a lap down, and then he got to come down pit. It was so confusing as to what was. And NASCAR later did come out and say, okay, you know what, there was some rules that we did not foresee some circumstances playing out,
right.
And that was basically them saying, okay, we didn't exercise every possibility, and the weirdest ones played out. We apologize. So hopefully they'll learn their lesson. And we'll go back. But
that's why these crew chiefs get the big bucks, is to play out those weird scenarios and to find them and to find if there's an advantage there. That's like Matt Kenseth won the All-Star race one year by taking up the pit stall. He was the first stall in front of the pit box. I think it was Matt Kenseth anyway. And so all he had to do was drive 3 feet, and it was one of them deals where you had to make a green flag stop in the segment, and it was the last segment, and he made his stop the last lap with a 30-second lead or 28-second lead, whatever the heck it was, and then he didn't have to come back up to speed. He didn't have to do the second half of pit road. He drove 2 foot to finish the race.
Yeah.
Took the checkers on pit road.
Wow. And that's, I don't know if that's what you really want out of an all-star race. You know, what we really want, and frankly, it's kind of hard to get at Charlotte, is the Dale Earnhardt and was it Ricky Rudd battle?
Bill Elliott, I think.
Bill Elliott, the one that I hate the most, the pass in the grass. Which Tony Stevens, who's one of the announcers out there in Concord, and he does the Cars touring series and some stuff for Fox Sports. I kind of crucified Fox Sports on I said, at this point,
on a regular basis.
Yeah, I said, can we stop with the pass in the grass? Because, yeah, the moniker stuck, but that's not what it was. It was a save in the grass. It was a terrific move. It should be highlight material, which it is, but let's call it what it was. It was not a pass in the grass.
Earnhardt was in the lead. He can't pass when you're in first.
Right, that's what we want, is those guys really battling for the win. But what we've seen the last several years is that strategy has given somebody a massive lead. Now, we saw a really good battle between Joey Logano and Kyle Larson, and poor Kyle Larson. I mean, you want to talk about emotions on your sleeve.
A microphone in your face.
Yeah, that kid, you could see his thoughts develop as the interview went on. He was so disappointed in himself. And as I'm sitting there watching that, I'm thinking, boy, I hope he doesn't take this too much to heart. You know, because that's the kind of thing that can really make you that could set you back. I think that's the reason why Joey Logano struggled at Joe Gibbs Racing, was because when he didn't succeed like everyone expected him to, he got down on himself and he lost his confidence. Coming over to Penske, they pepped him back up.
Well, I also think Joey got to listening what everybody was saying about him. Is he ready to be here?
Yeah. And Dale Earnhardt went through it. Steve Letarte said, my biggest job when I took over as crew chief for Dale Earnhardt Jr. was as a cheerleader. I needed to keep him positive from lap 1 to the checkered flag. And Steve did a terrific job, and now Dale's a completely different driver. He's a much better driver today than he was 3-4 years ago.
Oh, he's so laid back now.
Yeah. And even he was confused. But I tell you, the comments Tony Stewart made. And if anybody Stewart fans are out there saying, well, why isn't Tony getting fined for his comments about the All-Star race? Because they didn't have to do with safety. I'll tell you that much, because I thought the same thing. I was like, oh, Tony's go ahead and speak it out already. We'll see how this goes, but no penalties because it was all about safety. All right, so this week stunk as far as dirt racing is concerned. We were all excited. So I texted you on Monday. I said, here's the show. Turn 1, let's recap the All-Star race. Turn 2, let's grab audio from the Go 50 at I-80 Speedway. Turn 3, we'll play interviews from I-80 Speedway. Turn 4, we'll preview the Coca-Cola 600, the Indy 500, and the Charlie Clark Memorial that's going on tonight, and we'll have an easy show. Well, then the Go 50 got rained out, so I thought, okay, well, then we'll go to Crawford County, and we'll do turns 2, and turns 3 will be at Crawford County for the U.S., and then that got rained out, and the rain just keeps coming.
And it's scheduled all through.
Yeah, we recorded Thursday morning, so who knows what's going to happen Sunday. But I tell you, if there's any inkling of no rain and the race is getting in tonight at the Charlie Clark Memorial, I know it probably sounds like I'm a homer because I announced the races at I-80 Speedway, and I'm good friends with everybody out there. But the Charlie Clark Memorial is by far, no doubt about it, my favorite race of the year. The format that they do that AMOD race, and for some reason, these guys drive just a little bit harder. And I think it as I've kind of begun to dive into why, I think it has to do with the invert. So tonight's races will have 24 AMODs that are going to qualify for the A feature of the Charlie Clark. And they'll do 22 laps. And then all the drivers will pull down on pit road. And I say they'll do 22 laps, and then the winner of that race will get paid out for winning that race. And there'll be a payout for the top, I can't remember how far back. But then they all pull down the front stretch, and all the crews come out and have 2 minutes and 22 seconds to make changes to the cars.
Now, they used to do that right on the front stretch.
They do.
Oh, I
said pit road. My mistake. It's down on the front stretch. They have a chalk line. The crews aren't able to come across until the horn sounds, and then they got 2 minutes, 22 seconds, change tires, make adjustments, do whatever. And then they all got to go back across by the time the time expires, and then all lead lap cars are inverted. So if there's 20 cars left on the lead lap, then first place, whoever won the first segment goes back to 20th, whoever came in second goes to 19th, 20th goes to first. Which I think that's what makes it a great race, because you have guys like Dylan Smith and Kyle Burke and Justin Zeitner and Jesse Dennis, who has been really, really good out of I-80 Speedway the last year. And some of the best AMOD drivers in the area, and they got to come from the back, and that makes for really, really good racing, and it's so fun to watch. The whole pit stop and making changes really kind of adds excitement to it. So it's a really fun race. Get out there tonight, and if I hope and pray that we can get this race in tonight. So that's the Charlie Clark tonight. We're going to talk more about that in turn number 4, but boy, did our week just go to crap. So instead, we did a little bit of legwork back in Kansas. Coming up in turn number 2, we're going to talk with an Iowa native coming from Cedar Rapids, Landon Cassill. We're finally going to get to that interview and talk to Landon about all sorts of things.
And we've been trying for a year and a half to get that interview, but we finally got it done.
And what a good one to get. We got it right after Talladega, which was such a suspenseful race, so we kind of talk about that a little bit. And we make some comments about, last week at Kansas, this week. So the timely things, just ignore them because it was done a couple of weeks ago when we were down at Kansas. But that's going to come up in turn number 2. Turn 3, we'll give away Iowa Speedway tickets, and we'll talk some NASCAR news and notes. NASCAR apparently reducing the downforces again for these cars. The aero packages for the downforce packages.
Carl Edwards is smiling.
He is, indeed, and it's always good. A big old smile and teeth, the perfect pearly whites that guy
Even
has.
a thumbs up and then a backflip.
We'll preview the Indy 500, the Coca-Cola 600, and the Charlie Clark coming up tonight. A lot of great racing action, and then hopefully you have a beautiful Memorial Day tomorrow, and the sun shines and we get no rain.
And race tickets.
Yeah. Iowa Speedway tickets, and we'll figure out what to do with those Kansas Speedway driving tickets, we'll call them. We'll be back here on the front stretch.
My kind of road trip is a little different. Sure, it's got hours of driving with plenty of pit stops, but it's not for minivans. And this drive is one journey that's all about the destination. This is my road trip. This is my Speedway. June 18th, experience the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series 200. June 19th is the NASCAR Xfinity Series American Ethanol E15 250. Tickets start at $15 only at Iowa Speedway.
Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs has taken a page out of IMCA's rulebook and gone crate. These brand new low-emission engines will still have you white-knuckling it all through the Metro's fastest indoor facility. Joe's Karting is now friendly for all skill levels with their brand new Honda-powered engines. It's time to get to Joe's today and find out what drivers like Jack Dover, Shaylee Bate, and Andrew Kosiski have known for years. Located in Council Bluffs and online at joeskarting.com. That's karting with a K.
We're hooked up in turn 2 and still showing the green flag on the front stretch.
Hey y'all, it's Miss Coors Light, and you're listening to The Front Stretch.
Welcome back to the front stretch. Heading into turn number 2, it's time to talk with Landon Cassill. Well, we're going to play our interview from Kansas Speedway. I feel kind of bad because, whenever we go to Kansas Speedway, we always hear about Carl Edwards, Clint Boyer, and Jamie Mack returning home. Those are all Missouri boys, but we never hear about Landon Cassill, who's an Iowa native from Cedar Rapids, and I think there's a couple of more guys that are Iowa natives that are on the Sprint Cup circuit as regular drivers that Kansas could be their home track. So we started off by asking him, is this one of his home tracks? Does he consider this a home track?
In some ways, yeah, it feels like it just because I get a lot of friends that come here from Cedar Rapids, and I don't know. I love Kansas. I love the Midwest, and I think Kansas City is a great city, so I enjoy coming here to stay.
And it's got to be, they always talk about when Clint Boyer and Carl Edwards and Jamie McMurray come back, it's their home tracks, but they never talk about when you come back. So is it just as hectic with you, like week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks before the races? Everyone's like, hey, can I get some tickets to the race?
It can be, yeah. If I have a hard time saying no to people, so when I get friends that, if they have the gumption to hit me up directly, then fine. I have a hard time saying no.
You got to get them out here, though. I mean, it's quite the experience. Do you try to bring at least 1 or 2 new people out to the racetrack every weekend, or at least to Kansas Speedway, so they can experience what a NASCAR race is like?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, when it comes to my guest list and my hot pass list, it's always full. I've always got people on my list, and I'm really, I really enjoy bringing people out to the racetrack. I definitely don't try to hide it from anybody. I mean, people need to come out and experience NASCAR races, and whether it's my friends that have been to 100 races or someone that's bringing new people, I really that's why I have a hard time saying no. It's just I want people to come out, and even if it's as little of an effect as just a handful of people on my guest list, I like to do everything I can.
So talk to us about growing up in Cedar Rapids. Did you grow up there all your adolescent life doing a little bit of racing, and that's how you got exposed to it?
Pretty much. I mean, it's I grew up in the car business, and I was always around cars. I always loved racing. I watched NASCAR, and I mean, I was definitely into it.
What was the first thing you drove?
A Ford Festiva was my high school car.
What about your first race car?
My first race car was a go-kart.
Which was faster, the Festiva or the go-kart?
I'm not sure. Probably the go-kart. I started out in go-karts when I was 8 years old, and moved up from there to full-size cars. I raced Legends cars. I raced IMCA modifieds on asphalt. Raced ASA late models around the Midwest and into the Southeast.
Much dirt track racing at all?
I actually never got into dirt track racing until probably later on. I owned a dirt car, ran it a little bit. It just I was racing NASCAR by that time, so it was kind of fun to go race dirt on the side. But But man, it's hard to race dirt and be good at it if you're not doing it a lot. I follow IMCA Dirt Racing. And back home, I listen to a lot of shows and try to keep up with how my friends are doing. And it's hard to beat those guys. I mean, they're racing 4 nights a week. So, I definitely stick to what I'm paid to do, and that's race NASCAR.
We hear a lot with guys that, you have your hobbyers that race 1, maybe 2 nights a week, but the guys that are really trying to make a go of it, like you said, they're racing 4 nights a week. Is it tough for you racing one weekend a month, or one weekend for the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series? Yeah, you get some practices in, but that's not real race experience. So is it hard to kind of continue to grow as a driver when you're only getting 1 shot a week?
No, I mean, I think it's just a different game. It's not racing one night on dirt is 6 or 8 laps of hot laps, a 10-lap feature or 10-lap heat race, and a 25 or 30-lap feature. That's happy hour for us.
Yeah,
so, we definitely get a lot of laps. But like you said, they're not racing laps, but it's just a different game. We have a very specific agenda we're trying to accomplish in practice and qualifying. So there is a ton to learn and a lot of very important stuff that we're trying to accomplish.
Do you do any of the sim racing or iRacing? I know a lot of the guys are into that real heavy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely very well aware of iRacing, and I've got a lot of friends that are into it. I've been messing around with it a lot lately, just on the setup stuff, reading data, because the data programs that you can read iRacing data is the same as what I'm looking at in terms of the data on my Cup car. So it helps me with reading data and kind of seeing what the iRacing car is outputting compared to what my Cup car is outputting. And I've been needing to get back into the driving of iRacing and just enjoying racing it. But honestly, I've been just kind of watching my friends and logging on and getting on TeamSpeak with them and kind of seeing what they have going on.
Does Furniture Race Motorsports have much in the aspect of sim racing, or is that something that you need to do? Because we were listening to Rico Abreu, obviously a rookie in the truck series, and so he's going for the first time at a lot of these tracks, but this isn't your first time at Kansas. So do you get that sim experience, or do you even think you need it?
Well, I mean, I've done it. I've driven for, this is my first season with Ford and with Front Row Motorsports, and Ford has a driving simulator that they have that I'm fitted up in, and all the other Ford drivers, pretty much have access to. So, those are pretty sophisticated machines, and that's a pretty useful tool for all of us. So, in some ways it's definitely pretty similar to iRacing, but maybe times 10 times 1,000. Any advantage you can get as a driver outside the car, I mean, it's I'm going for everything that I can.
How about a little bit about fatherhood? You're a fairly new father, not brand new, but fairly new. How's that going for you?
Oh, it's wonderful. I mean, my little guy's 11 months old, and he's driving the dog crazy and going up the stairs, and 11 months old is kind of a fun age. He's crawling but not walking. He's babbling but he's not talking. He's got lots to say, but I don't think he knows what he's saying, or well, he knows what he's saying. We don't know what he's saying. So he is a whole lot of fun.
Is that kind of like driver crew chief communication sometimes? He's telling you something, you're like, I have no idea what you're saying.
Yeah, that tends to happen.
How much did your life change 11 months ago when that happened? Was that kind of one of those things where you were sitting in the birthing room and you're like, oh my God, this is real?
Yeah, it is crazy. I mean, being a parent is something else. It's everything everybody says it is. Change your life. The best thing that's ever happened to you. I mean, it's all of that stuff.
Do you think you drive different now?
I hope I drive better.
No, are you an aggressive driver? Are you kind of an easy, laid back, nice guy driver, or are you going to put the bumper if you need to?
I mean, I try to be. I feel like I'm a fairly disciplined driver. I like to let the races play out. 500-mile race is a long race, so I'm usually pretty smart about the position I need to be in, and I like to be in tune with what our strategy is, so that I can kind of match that with how intense I'm driving. Yeah, I'm really not afraid to put a bumper to anybody at any time.
I noticed, I don't know if you've heard, but Talladega was a little bit of a crazy race last weekend, there was, with the weather coming in, it seemed like the aggression level was ramped up quite a bit because everyone was worried that this was going to be the lap the caution was going to come out and the race was going to be over with. Could you feel that behind the wheel, that it was a little bit more of an aggressive race than normal?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you could just see the field. People were a little bit more ambitious, a little more aggressive. It just seemed like tension was kind of high. There was really no relaxed environment in the field at all, especially after halfway.
I can only compare it as to driving down the interstate, and I'm in a clunk of cars, and there's brakes, and then there's speeding up, and then there's moving lanes. And when I get to work after a 10, 15-minute commute, I'm exhausted. I can only imagine what you're like after a race like last weekend at Talladega, and you're getting out of that car and just going, oh, my God.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely mentally taxing. I mean, I think Talladega, of all of them, is you're definitely thinking a lot. You're trying to just figure out what lanes are good and what lanes aren't, and what other drivers are trying to do. And it's hot inside those cars. They're just sealed up a lot more than our downforce cars.
So in other words, you get like one breath a lap, like down the back straightaway. You can take a little breath, and the rest of the time you're sucking it in. And I know we were talking just a second ago about the level of urgency. I mean, I know when they say rain, I mean, you guys just pop it, it's going to blow your helmet off, that level of urgency. Is that what really happens inside that car?
I mean, it can be. We haven't had. I don't think we've had an urgency like that in a while. But and I think Talladega, Daytona are where you really see that urgency. I mean, at places like intermediate tracks, they say the rain's coming. People drive a little bit more aggressively, but you're still the handling of your race car, and how you've been running is dictating how far up in the field you are. So you're trying as hard as you can every lap anyways. Whereas Talladega, a lot of people might be in the middle of the pack or running the high side or the bottom and not really making aggressive moves when they could be running a little bit harder. So as soon as we get past halfway at a super speedway and they say it's that rain's coming, now everybody's racing like there's 10 to go.
So kind of wrapping up a little bit, obviously on the Sprint Cup Series circuit, you're gone so much away from Iowa. What would be your biggest thing you miss about Iowa now that you're not able to get back as often as you can? Is it the great football team? Is it the beautiful scenery? Is it Iowa State Fair? Is it just being around friends and family?
I think it's I think I miss the people the most, just Midwestern values. And just a humble town like Cedar Rapids, and that's worth a lot. That means a lot to me. But just the Midwestern values of people from Iowa is probably what I miss the most. What I enjoy when I go back home.
And if you were the god of racing for one day, and you could pick something that would change racing every day, we did some interviews yesterday. We got the answer of dome every racetrack, so we never had rainouts. What was Travis's? Tires never wear out. You put one set of the tires on all weekend and you're good. What would yours be?
Well, I definitely wouldn't have tires that never wear out. We've had that, and the racing's no fun. So I don't know. I mean, I'm going to get out of the box a little bit. I'm going to say a fan experience where their phones work, the internet works. It's a T1 grade internet connection. I'd like to I think just looking in a crystal ball of technology with virtual reality and all this stuff that's coming on, I would love to see a race fan be able to open up their phone and see the inside of my car while the race is going on, not just 5 or 6 of the cars that their sponsor paid for a in-car camera. I think there's so much content that the fans are not seeing yet, that they can see. So I mean, I think in this world of content and media, we need to keep unlocking these new things that we have access to, that the fans, that consumers want to see. People are consuming things so differently than they were 20 years ago. So podcasts, radio shows, on demand, media, stuff like that. I mean, we need to get more content in the on-demand field. So that's what I would change if I was the racing god for a day. I think their on-track product is amazing. I think NASCAR taking downforce off the cars, giving us softer tires with lots of fall off. I think the quality is there. I think it's just getting that content out to people is what we need to continue to work on.
We know a lot of people that kind of have been bashing NASCAR a little bit because the race in the last several years has been down to what it used to be. But these last few weeks, Talladega notwithstanding, because I'm not a restrictor plate fan, but the racing at Richmond and Bristol was fantastic. It was incredible. It really was. I mean, and I'm sure you had fun out on the track at those places.
Yeah, I mean, it was incredible. But honestly, I think NASCAR does a great job. They've always done a great job for decades. And the product, the criticism on the product is going to be cyclical. I mean, people hated the wing when the Superbird came out, and people didn't like radial tires when they went from bias ply to radial. People, when V6 is the V8s, like there's always changes that people are going to fight about. They're going to say it's better or worse. So I don't think there's one answer in terms of making the product better. I think it's, focusing on the consumer and how they're, taking in our product, and that's what we need to nail. And NASCAR's on top of that. They do a good job.
Really well-spoken guy. I enjoyed talking to him. He was well worth the wait on getting on the show. Hopefully we can do it a little bit more often and kind of give him and some of his fans over in Cedar Rapids a little bit of love.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd never had the chance to speak to him before. He came in the race, and obviously just been in a couple of years, so I was out of doing what I was doing with it. But like we said, we had been trying to get him, but with this being his home area, he was a little bit in demand last year, but we got in there this year. So
I hope we'll be able to get him in coming week. Maybe next time we go down to down for the October races. All right, that's going to do it for turn number 2. We're going to take a break, come back to turn number 3. We'll talk some NASCAR news and notes. We'll give you a chance to win Iowa Speedway tickets to the June 18th Camping World Truck Series race and the June 19th Xfinity race. That's coming up in a couple of weeks, and you're going to win a pair of tickets to each one of those races, so we'll make it a good race weekend at Iowa Speedway for you. 402-573-0590. That's the digits to get set and ready to call when we ask you the trivia question coming up in turn number 3. We'll be back here on the front stretch.
Are you looking to book your next outing? Look no further than Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. Located just north of Bass Pro Shop, Joe's Karting can handle outings of well over 100-plus people. Bachelor parties, corporate outings, team building, birthday parties, and much more. Give Buddy a call today and reserve your outing. Joe's will even work with local restaurants to cater your event. Book yours today at joeskarting.com. That's karting with a K. It's time to get to Joe's and find out what everyone already knows.
If you love wings, if you love rings, and all kinds of other tempting things, great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Quaker Steak and Lube is the official watering hole for the front stretch and the best place to catch all the NASCAR action today. Open at 11 a.m. with delivery available to Council Bluffs.
Great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Feather the brake and get back to the gas. Dan and Dirk are headed into turn 3 on the front stretch.
Hey everybody, this is Kyle Larson, driver of the Target Chevy number 42, and you're listening to the front stretch.
Welcome back to the show. Rolling into turn number 3. And Dirk, you got your Indianapolis 500 shirt on. Did you ever go to Indy?
I've been to the Speedway, but I have not been to the race. I've had a lot of friends go, and I've had a lot of friends go to the Brickyard. I never had to work the Brickyard. I always had to work the small track on Friday and Saturday for the then Busch race and the truck race. But as far as spectating, from what I've understood, you need to get on the exit of the turns so you can look down this long straightaways.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the way the track's laid out and they're going so fast, whether it's Cup cars or Indy cars, that you see what's right in front of you.
Yeah, that's what like the getting like start finish line tickets. Basically, I've just heard that it's and that's your view,
right?
And because you can't see the backstretch because of the buildings,
you can't see the turns, you can't see anything.
Right. It's so I don't think I'd ever be really interested in going, even if we had an opportunity to go cover it for the show. I don't think I'd be interested.
Well, that might be kind of neat, just being there one time for the atmosphere. That's like I only worked one All-Star race. But that was by far the most electric racetrack that I've ever been at. That place was buzzing from 3 in the afternoon until the race ended. It was just bizarre, the feeling that you got while you were there. I mean, I'm getting goosebumps now just talking about it. It was nice. It was unreal. You got to go once. You got to go to Darlington once. I mean, you got to go to Bristol once.
See, and I could do that. I think I would be very happy with going to like Darlington and Bristol. I'd love to go to Bristol and Martinsville just once to try it out, because I've heard just it's so electric from the second they start those engines. It's deafening at Bristol.
Oh, Bristol, yeah. I mean, it's a big bowl.
Yeah.
I mean, you stand on pit road at Bristol, you can't hear yourself think.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about some NASCAR news and notes. It's good to have you always be a part of the show, because you can help me out understand exactly what NASCAR is doing. On Thursday, they announced that they were going to be once again lowering the aero package. I'm saying it wrong again. They're changing the aero package to lower the downforce.
There you go.
There, I finally spit it out.
And
to throw some numbers at you, the 2015 aero package got them somewhere around 2,700 pounds of downforce. So that was weight pushing down on the car from the air, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so it was basically like having a horse sitting on the car. That's a horse about 2,700 pounds.
It's almost like having the car sitting on the car.
Okay. In 2016, they reduced the aero package. Excuse me, I'm saying it wrong again. They changed the aero package to reduce the downforce by about 900 pounds, so it came down to about 1,800 pounds. The car was about half as light.
Yeah.
About a third. So that makes the car much more slick, slides around. That's why you're seeing a lot of these guys kind of chasing it out of the corner a lot more. Well, because the back ends are getting out.
It's not into the drivers like to use the term into the track. Literally, you're not being pushed into the track as hard.
Yeah.
So, you're going to move around a little bit more. If you ever get on a windy speedway where there's crosswinds and stuff, it affects you even more with less downforce.
Now, we've talked about this a lot. When a new rules package comes out, it usually takes about 4 or 5 weeks, 4 or 5 races for teams to kind of start to get their handle on the aero packages. And reading this article from Fox Sports, and I just almost threw up a little bit giving Fox Sports credit. Sorry, I'm just kidding. It's a good article that I posted on Facebook. It says the teams managed to gain back some of that downforce through ongoing development. You kind of made a comment about what team you think that is.
Well, it's real obvious that it's the Gibbs bunch. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're just head and shoulders above everybody this year as far as a 4-team group. And that's just engineers, and that's what we've been saying the year and a half that I've been working this show with you is like Roush. Roush is so behind because their engineers are still old school and aren't thinking with new thoughts.
Yeah. The engineers are the new fancy things that everyone's paying lots of money to find a good engineer that can. I mean, Rodney Childress, we can't say it enough how much he brought Kevin Harvick. I don't want to say turned him around because he was a successful driver. He was, where did he come from, Harvick? But now he's always there, Harvick.
Yeah.
He's and Rodney is finding those little things in the cars that make him that much faster and that much dangerous.
And he might actually be an engineer.
Yeah, I think he is
by schooling.
I think so.
So that's his channel of thought. It used to be your crew chiefs and everybody, like Larry Mack. Larry Mack's a smart dude. Don't kid yourself. Or Ray Everham, another smart dude. They were ex-racers.
Yeah.
And
they
weren't engineers.
Strategists. They were strategists.
Ray Everham was.
Yeah.
Ray Everham was a strategist.
He knew how to plan out a race to work in his favor.
Well, he was the first guy that started working the races backwards and started looking at the stats with history repeating itself. There's, the last 20 races at this speedway, there's been a caution flag in the last 10 laps. So he goes, we're going to be able to pit inside of 10 laps. Now we got to go back to about 60 laps, and we got to pit somewhere around there. Then we got to go. He worked his whole race backwards. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times then you end up with a couple cautions towards the end, one with 30 laps, one with 20 laps, then another one with 18 laps from the restart of that one, and it throws all that out the window. But he was still the guy that developed that thought.
So now they've said in 2017, so they're going to test a new aero package at Michigan and Kentucky that is going to lower the aero package one more time. It's going to lower the downforce by about 500 pounds. So they were at 1,800 pounds. They figured that some teams have gotten back a couple hundred pounds, so now they're at about 2,000 pounds of downforce. So they're trying to get the team somewhere around 1,500 pounds. And if this is successful, then they're going to probably implement it for the 2017 season. Some of the technical changes include cutting the rear spoiler dimension from 3.5 inches and 65 inches wide to 2.5 inches high by 53 inches wide. What's that width going to do?
The corners of the spoiler fill up the fastest. The center is the hardest to fill up of the spoiler.
With air.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all you're filling the spoiler with. You're not going to throw mud back there on a NASCAR race, except for the truck series.
Although we want to.
We're
not there yet.
That'd be nice. But, and if you notice where they're doing it, last year when they tried out the current package was at Kentucky and Michigan. But the thing they didn't do last year is they didn't give Goodyear enough time to come up with a tire for that package for those two tracks. So they ran with the 2,700-pound downforce package tire with the new downforce package. So I don't know if they're going to get a new tire for these two tracks this year.
And the problem we had with that was that because the cars were lighter, the cars were sliding and eating the tires like crazy.
They were eating them a lot more than what they should have.
Mm-hmm.
So
also the width of the ends of the front splitter are also being cut from roughly 5 inches to 2 inches. So they're going to take 3 inches off those front splitters.
Well,
which you said it, I think, in turn one. Carl Edwards is loving this because he told us
take the
spoilers off, take the splitters off, so let us go racing, and we're getting there.
You know, and I have not been a spoiler fan. I am glad I never had to tech with or it's not a spoiler fan, but a splitters fan. I never had to tech a race vehicle with a splitter. And I've said since day one, I thought they were the goofiest things that they ever come out with. And they made, that was, I think, the one biggest thing that almost destroyed the sport. You know, that they're reeling it back. They're not taking it right off. You know, they're taking a little off, taking a little off, taking a little off. They made several changes on that splitter. But, they should just take it off for these two races and see what happens. Go back to an old straight down valance and be done with it.
Yeah. So that's going to be 2017. We'll get a preview of that coming up in a couple of weeks at Michigan and then again at Kentucky. So we'll kind of see what we can expect from that. And there's going to be a Goodyear tire test with that too. I think they said, NASCAR tried this package during the May 17th tire test at Michigan and was pleased with the results. It will be tested again there June 12th and at Kentucky on June 13th and 14th. So they're going to be doing tests for those.
Well, they already did test May 7th. That would have been...
Okay, May 17th, a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, so...
I knew they were doing it. I saw on the news feeds that they were doing a tire test. I didn't realize they were lowering the downforce package for this.
Well, they were. If they're testing, they're doing it for a reason. So at least they've got the Goodyear tire part of it figured out. I would hope they got their info that they needed for that. So that's nice.
All right, we got a couple minutes left in the turn, so let's give away some tickets. Last year in August, I think it was August 1st, we were at Iowa Speedway watching a terrific Xfinity race. We were trying to get out of there before the traffic, so we sat on the exit of the infield into turn 2, and we listened to the radio as Brendan Gaughan and this driver battled for the win. I want to know who the driver was that ended up winning that race. And
Xfinity race number 2 at Iowa Speedway in 2015.
402-573-0590. That's the number to call to get in. First person with the correct answer will let Craig know, and you will win yourself a pair of tickets to the June 18th Camping World Truck Series race and June 19th Xfinity race at Iowa Speedway coming up here in a couple of weeks. So that was a great race to watch. It was really, really awesome to finally see an Xfinity race where there wasn't 4 or 5 Cup regulars. And I hope we get to see that again, although I believe that May 19th race is an off weekend for the Cup Series. Yeah, it is, because that's a Sunday. So we may see a couple more Cup guys. We may see some. We may not. We may, because usually you have Kyle Busch and Brad Keselowski and maybe Kevin Harvick come down, and Joey Logano loves coming and racing, but they don't have a companion race that weekend, so it's not convenient for them to just walk across the garage and get in an Xfinity car and race. Maybe they're going to take that weekend off and enjoy some time apart, because I think they only have that weekend, which is June 19th, and then another weekend this year in the schedule for off weekends.
Right.
Otherwise, I think they've had 3 or 4 weekends where they didn't have to race. There was no all-star race or no extra races, so they didn't have to do anything. But who knows what we'll see. But who won the August 1st, 2015 Xfinity race at Iowa Speedway. 402-573-0590. Those are the numbers to call, and you could win yourself a pair of tickets to Iowa Speedway. We want to say thanks to Jimmy and William over at Iowa Speedway for hooking us up with those tickets. We have those tickets. We have, I believe we're getting IndyCar tickets, and we have Truck Series tickets in July that we're going to be giving away too. So we have a lot of tickets to give away to Iowa Speedway. Let's take a break. We'll cut back. Turn number 4. We'll talk a few more news and notes. We'll preview the Indy 500, the Coca-Cola 600, and the Charlie Clark Memorial. What's left to preview, I guess. We kind of did that in turn number 1. We'll be back here on the front stretch.
Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs has taken a page out of IMCA's rulebook and gone crate. These brand new low-emission engines will still have you white-knuckling it all through the Metro's fastest indoor facility. Joe's Karting is now friendly for all skill levels with their brand new Honda-powered engines. It's time to get to Joe's today and find out what drivers like Jack Dover, Shaylee Bate, and Andrew Kosiski have known for years. Located in Council Bluffs and online at joeskarting.com. That's karting with a K.
My kind of road trip is a little different. Sure, it's got hours of driving with plenty of pit stops, but it's not for minivans. And this drive is one journey that's all about the destination. This is my road trip. This is my Speedway. June 18th, experience the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series 200. June 19th is the NASCAR Xfinity Series American Ethanol E15 250. Tickets start at $15 only at Iowa Speedway.
It's checkers or wreckers as we enter turn 4 on the front stretch, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs.
Hey, I'm Joey Logano, driver number 22, Shell Penzo Ford, and you're listening to The Front Stretch.
Welcome back to the front stretch. Heading into turn number 4. Just about ready to wrap this baby up. We want to make sure and say thank you to Quaker Steak and Lube for always supporting the front stretch. Head out every Wednesday night for Bike Night, and you can come say hi to me. I'm hosting Bike Night right now. I'm doing some trivia and giving away lots of cool prizes, and man, seeing some gorgeous bikes.
Don't you mean if it ever quits raining, come on out for Bike Night?
Thursday nights are classic car cruising, and then, well, there's Monday nights, which is Kids Night, and they're doing their first Kids Touch Truck event on June 17th, I believe.
Those are pretty cool. That was kind of a neat idea for Chris to set up. The kids really get a kick out of it. You'll see some really lit up faces if you go out and watch that.
It's either June 13th or June 20th. I'll get you some more information on that, but it's really cool because you get to see some awesome vehicles out there. Just some stuff that you see from afar. Fire trucks, dump trucks, helicopters. There's usually they get the, what's the Transformer? Optimus Prime, and kids can go up and see it. It's a replica vehicle. It's really, really cool.
Put their hands on it.
So that's Mondays. All you can eat wings on Tuesdays, Bike Nights on Wednesdays, Classic Car on Thursdays, and then it's the weekend of the Havoc and the great food and all that fun stuff. So thanks a lot to Chris. All the action for today's racing. Listen, this could be a big day out of Quaker Steak and Lube. I think the green flag for today's race waves at about 11 a.m., so about 2 hours from now. So you can get down to Quaker Steak and Lube right when they open up and check out all the green flag action for the Indianapolis 500. The 100th running, right?
Yes.
And then a few hours later, the Charlie Clark Memorial kicks off, so you can head out to I-80 Speedway and watch that.
As your DVR is set
for the Coca-Cola 600, which kicks off at 5 o'clock. So a lot of racing action today. Talk to me. You worked at Charlotte for the 600 at all?
I was just there one weekend, and I had a garage job, but I wasn't on pit road, but I was there for the race.
That's Tony Stewart said earlier in the week about, the 600 anymore isn't really that much of an endurance race as much as it used to be back in the day.
Well, when they're going 200 miles an hour, it doesn't take too long to go 100 miles, what it amounts to.
Yeah, and it's still a long race, and I wish they would cut this race back, but I understand the nostalgia of it, that it's the longest length race on the Sprint Cup circuit, and it, about 2.5, it's about 3.5 hours, maybe 4 hours if we have quite a few cautions, but it'll be interesting today. Hopefully Kyle Larson, man, he had a really good car at the All-Star race. Hopefully they found something that they can carry that through. Joey Logano had a great car, so did Brad Keselowski. Who else was really strong? Kevin Harvick was pretty strong up front early, but then had a steering issue, so he may be strong today.
Carl was strong.
Yep.
Joe
Gibbs Racing.
The Gibbs cars were strong. I mean, off and on. But yeah, like we touched on earlier, how disappointed Kyle was, and Joey got inside and just loosened him up enough, and they were, he'd used his tires. He was driving it hard, while Joey was trying to chase him down. And so, I mean, it just does show how much better Joey's car was.
Yeah.
You know, they hit it. When the money was on the line for the last segment, both him and Brad, and Joey said afterwards, we hadn't even shown what we had all weekend. You know, that was the first time I raced, so...
Talking about Joe Gibbs racing cars and how good they were, let's do a little bit of trivia based on them. There was something kind of interesting that Kyle Busch was running a special car number, and boy, did the Fox broadcast have a tough time with that. And I can understand. You see the yellow M&M's car out there, you keep calling out the 18, but he was running a different number. And so the trivia question we're going to ask you, and the prize is going to be for 2 passes. Now, this is 2 different vehicles can go down to Kansas Speedway this coming Friday, Saturday, or Sunday and get onto the track for free, and you could do a couple of laps around Kansas Speedway in your car. And this is courtesy of Rick Havenridge at Wealth Partners. He hooked us up with this stuff. It's something that if you have season passes to the infield, you get these. So he said, I don't ever use them. I don't have a car that's worth taking them down.
He's got a Corvette. What's he thinking?
Does he?
Yes,
Maybe he's
do.
done it a couple of times, and he just wanted to let us do a little racing. I tried to take the Ranger down one year, but they wouldn't let me.
What do you mean they wouldn't let you?
I think they were afraid I'd break the track record or something.
Yeah.
What car number was Kyle Busch running in the All-Star race last Saturday night? Answer that question, 402-573-0590, and you're going to win 2 passes to go down to Kansas Speedway this coming weekend, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. Times are all listed on the information packet. I'll make sure you get all that stuff. And you can go down and do a couple of laps at Kansas Speedway and feel what it's really like to be on that track. I'll tell you, I was really surprised when Steve Kaziski had me get in the pace car, the Kaziski Auto Parts pace car at Iowa Speedway. I was really surprised at how bumpy those tracks are. Because when you're sitting in the stands and you're looking at it, it looks so smooth. But, man, it's teeth rattling how bumpy those things are. And I imagine when you get up to speed in like an A-Mod or a sprint car, it kind of evens out a little bit. But holy cow, is it bumpy. I wonder if a NASCAR track is like that also.
Well, not near as the dirt track is. The thing with the dirt track is it's going to change from week to week where those bumps are, where an asphalt track obviously isn't going to. Mm-hmm. But, you hear them talk about the bumps and the turns and whatnot. But the racing suspension, was designed to eliminate a lot of that. But, again, special thanks to Rick Havenridge and Wealth Partners for hooking everybody up with those free passes. That'll be a good thing for somebody to take advantage of.
Rick's a good supporter of the show. I love talking to him because he's kind of one of those wealths of knowledge.
Yeah.
He's able to help me out with some of the information on the show. Him and his wife play the Pick'ems contest, and they have a good time. I think she's beating him right now, though.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
It's been a fun year in the contest. I wish we could do more with it, and I hopefully now with getting Iowa Speedway tickets and getting them on board to give us stuff, we'll be able to do another 5-week contest. But coming up in a couple of weeks, coming up tonight at Iowa Speedway, the Charlie Clark Memorial. Have you been out there for that last year? Did you get there?
No, I didn't go last year. I was the guy out of this radio show that stayed home and watched the 600, so
That's right.
We knew what happened.
You sacrificed that for me. If the race is able to go on tonight, it's an awesome race. It's so much fun, and it's going to be a great time. I hope you can make it out there. Our friends over at Mr. Ed's Flagpole Company are going to be out there selling flags. They have some NASCAR memorabilia flags to sell and also American flags, so that with tomorrow being Memorial Day, you can have a nice, beautiful flag flying for the day that we honor those that never made it home. And then the Charlie Clark Memorial, it's a fantastic race. I really do hope that gets in.
Yeah, it is. It's a great race. Like I said, the format is just different enough. It's not quite like NASCAR where they change it 12 times for the last 13 laps. But they've just got that pit stop in the middle, which is something unique for a local dirt race. And sitting there in the grandstands, you get to actually watch these guys if you haven't seen it before. They might be changing shocks. Almost everybody in the front will be changing a right rear tire, going for the money, because they'll want a fresh tire for that 22 laps starting in the back. But, it's definitely something that is unique.
While we got a few minutes left in the show, I wanted to talk about something that I think needs to be addressed. And I apologize to anybody out there that I may insult with this, but I saw some negative comments on Facebook this week about tracks canceling races. On Tuesday, I-80 made the decision early Tuesday morning that they had to cancel the
Go 50.
The Go 50. And you got to understand that, first off, you kind of, when Joe and Lisa and all the officials out of Iowa Speedway decide to cancel a race, that is an agonizing decision for them. And I do my best to just steer clear of Joe and Lisa when they're and Steve and everybody at IASB that was trying to make that decision, because it's not as simple as we can't get the track rolled in fast enough, so it's not going to happen. There's a lot of they made that call on Tuesday morning because they had fans that were coming from way out of town, and they had drivers that were making a long haul to get out there, and so letting them know as soon as possible that the track probably wasn't going to get worked in time.
Well, and Dan, the track is the least of the worries. They got to worry about where to put all those big haulers. That's the biggest thing, and where the people can park.
The infield was ridiculous.
Oh,
and it was in the like you just said, the parking lot is grass, but you'd have been dodging puddles, and they'd have had a tough time parking that many people. It was going to be a logistic nightmare if they could have gotten the good fortune to get that race in, because none of those haulers would have been able to park in the infield. It was a lake. It was a lake. There was standing water in the infield where they were supposed to be parking, so they'd have had to park on the back stretch, which I don't think there's near enough parking to get all those guys back there.
Wouldn't even been close.
And then the criticism from Crawford County Speedway for canceling their race with USMTS, they ended up having to post a picture of the track. I think that's probably coming out of 4 is the picture they posted.
2 or 4.
And I mean, it's same thing. There would have been no low. If they'd have had the race, I think it would have been a pretty bad race because the track would have been locked down. It wouldn't have been able to get worked in. It had been too wet, and it had just been a bad thing. So they said, we got to cut our losses and do this. So I guess what I'm trying to get to and kind of standing up in my soapbox and saying that, it stinks for everybody. We were really looking forward to going out and watching that race.
Lucas Oil Cars, come on, people.
As fans and as me, I got to finally see my boyfriend again with Scott Bloomquist and, go give Jimmy Owens a little bit of talking to for saying mean things about my guy, Scott. And, but all joking aside, as fans, we wanted to go and see it. As reporters of the race, of the dirt world, we wanted to go out there and get you guys some great audio for today's show. But it's an agonizing decision when they decide to make this call. And I know that Joe and Lisa and Steve and, again, all the officials at I-80 Speedway are just agonizing over the decision on today's race for the Charlie Clark Memorial. They'll make that call a little bit later because it's mostly local guys. Right. So it's guys that are within an hour and a half, 2 hours drive, rather than 6, 7, 8 hour drive.
And if they have to start the race a little bit later for getting the track worked in, if they need an extra 2 hours or whatever, an extra hour. I shouldn't say nobody, but most people aren't working on Monday.
Yeah, that's an option for them. They didn't have that option on
Tuesday
because we'd all had to get to work. And I'm telling you, they fight tooth and nail to get races done by 10 p.m.
Oh, and they spend advertising dollars, so that literally is money that's been thrown away because there was no income from the race.
Yeah.
So they don't cancel races just because they want to or because they can or they want to stay home and watch The Voice. I mean...
Although that's a good reason too.
No, it's not. Even though Hannah Houston was on the show, it was not a good reason.
All right, we're going to do it all again next weekend. We'll have more interviews, more recaps, more fun stuff to do, more tickets for Iowa Speedway to give away. Thanks so much for joining us. For Dirk Houston, I'm Dan Taylor. Watch racing, go out to the track, have a good weekend, and enjoy your Memorial Day.
Answer those trivia questions.
We'll be back next weekend on the Front Stretch. This is AM 590, Omaha's ESPN Radio.
If you love wings, if you love rings, and all kinds of other tempting things, great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Quaker Steak and Lube is the official watering hole for the Front Stretch and the best place to catch all the NASCAR action today. Open at 11 a.m. with delivery available to Council Bluffs.
Great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Are you looking to book your next outing? Look no further than Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. Located just north of Bass Pro Shop, Joe's Karting can handle outings of well over 100-plus people. Bachelor parties, corporate outings, team building, birthday parties, and much more. Give Buddy a call today and reserve your outing. Joe's will even work with local restaurants to cater your event. Book yours today at joeskarting.com. That's karting with a K. It's time to get to Joe's and find out what everyone already knows.